Hello, everyone. So I'll get started, hopefully as other people come in. If anyone else wants to be on video too, that's great. I like to see smiling faces, but I'll get going in any case. So I will start first by introducing myself in the spirit of this global event as a New Zealander who has found herself in Montreal, the very snowy Montreal, which mystifies everybody back home. But so I'm kind of a New Zealand-Canadian combination. And for Rebus, the team that we have here at the Rebus Community is also quite spread out across the world, which is great. We love that. We're in all sorts of time zones at any given time throughout the year, covering about 3 continents. And I'll also say just kind of briefly my path to open education came from having worked in universities back in New Zealand, both as an instructor and as an administrator, and then really found my passion with publishing. And so if you combine kind of valuing what education can bring to the world and what books can bring to the world, you land with open textbooks, which is what I'm now working on with the Rebus Community. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And so here at the Rebus Community, I am the product manager and the project manager. So today I'm going to start just with like a brief overview of what we do at Rebus Community, what we've been working on just to set the scene, and then we are really excited to have the very first public demo of the software that we have been building. So I'll be screen sharing when I get to that bit, and then really keen to hear from anyone who has questions about that, or else I can talk a little bit about the future direction and how people might be able to get involved. So to start, the kind of Rebus Community mission is about building a collaborative platform for publishing open textbooks. There are some really amazing models around for publishing open textbooks, and we think there's a place for this collaborative approach as well. And the other thing that we kind of do alongside that is this idea of wanting to be able to build capacity. So a lot of the people that we work with and that we speak to are starting an open textbook program or joining one and don't necessarily have the publishing experience that they might need to get it up and running. And incredible work has been done kind of from scratch and figuring it out as people go. And we want to be able to work with those people to kind of pull resources and develop a process that we can then build into dedicated tools and resources that then anyone can use. So it's really about being able to have something that is flexible enough to kind of let lots of people use it in lots of different ways, but with that core goal of developing open textbooks and publishing them. So that's kind of why we have more of a publishing background here. And the other piece around collaboration we think of as being able to scale up the number of books that can be published. It expands the reach, and it's also about building community around books and projects so that they can have longevity, which is really crucial to the success of open textbooks long term. And so when we talk about collaboration, it doesn't necessarily mean like the Wikipedia model where anyone can come in and edit a line, but it's definitely kind of in that spirit of being able to leverage tools that are available to us, leverage the connections that we can make around the world, and then use that to create these really valuable resources. How we've been going about doing that, which is a fairly kind of big goal, is for the last year and a bit, maybe close to 1.5 years, we've been working hands-on with some pilot projects. I think we reached 15 to 20 different pilot projects, all of whom have been at different stages of the publishing process. So that's allowed us to kind of peek in and see how they have been working and work with them to address the areas where they weren't sure how to go about it, or they needed support figuring it out or something like that. And then we've really run the gamut of working with projects from the very beginning, where it was just an idea someone had and they didn't kind of know where they were going to get started, through to projects that had kind of an understanding of what they wanted but needed help creating the content, others who had content that needed to go into review. We've been working with people on things like beta testing to get real life classroom feedback, and as well this community building piece that we've been trying to work out of how can we get people invested in these texts long term, which is both about adoptions and also about keeping the content alive. So that has been an amazing experience for us, and so I've been leading the charge on that for most of that time, but we have been joined, very lucky to have been joined by Apurva, who's with me here today, who is now the project managing the books that we still have on the go. And we've published 3 of those texts to date. So Financial Strategy for Public Managers, which came to us via Shell Bachelor, who I see here on the call, which is great. We also have Media Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and that one really started from scratch, so that's incredible to have it out in the world. And then excuse me, literature reviews for education and nursing graduate students as well. And so we can share links to those if anyone's interested in them. That's kind of been our approach. Work with projects, figure out how to do this stuff, and then turn it into something that other people can use. And that's really the piece I kind of wanted to show today. But I'll also just note that the majority of the projects we've been working with have been kind of led by someone at a North American institution. We have one project that differs from that, that's out of the American University in Cairo, but we've been, and we know that that's something we will be expanding in the not too distant future, but we have been bringing on collaborators from around the world. So this piece of international collaboration we think is really exciting, and also a great way to prove out the model and show what a success it can be to expand kind of collaboration between institutions around the world. That does come with a lot of kind of logistics that we're working on, and all of that, that learning that we're doing and the experiences we're having and going into resources, so both around kind of the publishing process, but also around this idea of having a community approach to a book. And so we'll be looking to share some of that very soon as well. But now I will get on to the software. So I will be screen sharing. Let me just make sure I have my notes. All right, if you give me a moment to go into the right place. Okay, and now the menu is in the way of me navigating, as it always does this on Zoom. Sorry, 1 second. Here, right. Here it is. This is the Rebus Community Projects platform. I'll preface this demo just that this is our testing environment. So if there's anything that, there are some in-jokes, if there's anything in here that is looks out of place, we're still polishing this up before kind of releasing it publicly. And as well, we've put in a lot of the content from the projects that we really are working on to kind of see it real life, but we have not been using this just yet for active project management. So this is a staging environment in essence. So we start here on the project listing page, where we have all of the projects listed here. So this is a selection of the ones we've been working on with some kind of shorthand information about the projects themselves along here. Then we can click through into any one of them. So let's go into Media Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And here we have what we call the project page. And so this contains kind of standard information that you'd expect about a book, things you need to know about whether you're interested in contributing or perhaps adopting it once it's done. You can jump across to the outline. This in particular, we in our next release will be working with this to make it a bit more of a kind of a dynamic outline that we can then build on further, and I'll speak about that again in a moment. But we have kind of the metadata here in this box. Then we have help needed. And so this is the place to be able to add activities that we're looking for people to help with. So here on this example, we've set it up with some of the things we've done with this project along the way. So we have authoring a chapter. We had really successful author calls on this project. So that's getting people talking to each other as well as to the project leads, which we've found to be really successful. Peer review, which we know is a big one that a lot of people are working to figure out, and we are too. And then beta testing. So this book has been through, I believe, 1 semester of beta testing in several classrooms, and so that was kind of a coordinated activity as well. Excuse me. Then as we come down, here we have discussion, so we can have people coming in and meeting each other, and a way to share updates as the project progresses. Here as well, we have any resources attached to the book. So a Prezi and a TOC tend to be the standard ones at the project level, but that may expand out as the different, as the book kind of grows. And here we have the team as well. So now I'll go through, I might jump over to another project to show you how else it can look, because we're trying to keep it flexible to kind of meet what each of the different projects is doing. So here, Introduction to Philosophy. This is one of the books we've been creating from scratch with the lead editor is Christina Hendricks out of UBC. And so here we have, again, metadata, help needed, discussion, and if you go in here, see here's a couple of announcements of we've found our part editors and what we're still looking for. And then if we go back as well and go in, say, let's look at becoming a part editor. So for this project, we had a TOC broken down into parts and they require different expertise to manage and to edit. So here we have the activity. And say if I had taken another path in life and was qualified to write this, I can volunteer here. And that adds me to the team and then allows the contact to be made with the coordinator of this particular activity, which is typically the project managers for a project that you're working on. And again, we have kind of project specific resources. So here there's a bit of a job description, and then we can comment here too. So kind of have that exchange of information. And I'll pause here just to say a lot of this work, and the comments reminds me of it, is building on the approach we've been taking so far to publicize projects, which has been in the forum. So some of you may be familiar with the Rebus Community forum. And that's kind of been our testing ground to work out what people need, what they need to know, when, how to structure things, and things like that. And a really critical part of it is getting the people talking to each other and talking, again, not just to the project managers, but also within the team that are building around a particular book. Okay, so we'll head back as well. This, I'm seeing this because I have special admin privileges, but usually there's just the one join button here. So that's another way for people to show that they're interested in a project, join the team, but without immediately attaching themselves to a particular activity. Okay, so now I will go through and create a new project to show you what that piece looks like. So down here we have start your own project. And so let's call this one intermediate, if I can spell, philosophy. So we've had our introduction, now we're into intermediate. So learn some stuff, now learn some more. Our subject is still philosophy. Our audience is now going to be, let's say, second year undergraduate students. And here in academic level, let's say 200 level, although I have a bit of a question mark here of we want to make sure that that doesn't lock anyone into a North American system, and that's something we need to be talking to other people about, is whether that 200 level has the same resonance around the world. Release date, right now we're not sure, but let's be bold and say 2020. And for the fall semester, which would be 0901, let's just go with that. Then we have here the language and Creative Commons license. Right now, we are leaving this as English. There are 3 different kinds of language that could be involved here. There's a book language, a project language, and then user language. So that's a packet of work we need to work out in more detail, but we wanted to leave this here as kind of an indicator that that's on the roadmap to figure out, so this won't just be English only. And in the back end, everything is set up to be able to translate the interface once we get to that point. The other one here, of course, is the Creative Commons license. Now, if you've worked with us before, you know that we have a policy of supporting books that carry the CC BY license. That's a condition of our funding, and it's also something we really advocate for. So right now, that's a locked option. Then we come down here, and here's where you can enter some of the description information about the book. We'll likely be refining this a little bit, so let me just make sure I have. Let's drop in some dummy content here. Let's do an outline. So we have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Recognition for participants. Let's drop some text in there. That's all of these fields are, most of these fields are optional. So that's in case you want to be able to indicate that there's something available for people who will be joining. And then we save the project, and here it is. So I'm listed here as the project manager automatically, but I absolutely need approver's help. So we come down into this team widget, and I'm adding approver, and I'm adding her as a project manager as well. So that now gives her the same permissions that I have on the project to add, edit, and change things as need be. So the next thing I'll do is add an activity. So let's say peer review. We have the content authored. and we'll go for peer review. And this summary here is, we need to change the copy here to indicate that, but this is appears directly on the front page of the project, and I'll show you that in a moment. So let's say we need 4 reviewers in ethics, or something like that. What we're looking for is about, we want faculty, let's say faculty or doctoral students with experience teaching second year philosophy. How many different ways can I misspell philosophy? That'll do for now. Approximate time commitment, we're going to give people 6 weeks for the review. We'll maybe add a couple for kind of the administrative stuff, so 8 weeks. And then we could put in more details about what will be involved there. How to participate, we have another way of managing that. So for now, I'm just going to leave that because that will change very soon. So we save this, and here we now have our activity view. Again, we have the team. We have resources. So this here is our standard review guide. So I'm going to go and drop this in here. It picks up the title automatically, and we'll add that there. So now anyone who visits this page and says, oh, I might be interested in doing peer review, but I need to kind of know what that would entail, they have what they need. Yes, they have what they need. And again, we can go to the teams. So let's rope Hugh, my boss, into reviewing. So he'll be a contributor. At this level, we kind of have coordinator and contributor. So Hugh's now on here as well. And then we can comment and say Hugh has taken chapter 3, only 1, 2 and 4 left, or whatever we kind of want to put there as an exchange. It can also be a way to introduce yourself as the coordinator to the people volunteering and things like that. So now if we go back to the project homepage, you see we have our activity card here, and it has that short summary that we put in. So that's kind of a way to get the short version to people. So as soon as they land here and they see that, they can know that that's the action to take and see who else is involved and click through to learn more. So the other thing I'll note at the discussion level is rather than just direct comments, you can have different kinds of threads here. So let's do a volunteer meet and greet. I do apologize for all my typos. So now this is here that other people can come in and comment on and have an exchange. Okay. And that really goes through the majority of the process for creating a project and the activities on it. So I guess I'll pause momentarily and see if anyone has any questions that they'd like to jump in with, or anything that I went over too quickly, or a question more broadly about what this thing's doing.
Hey Zoe, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Hi Shell, how are you?
Hi, doing good. So I have a couple questions. One is, I'm curious, when you were talking at the beginning, you sort of talked about the vision of how these books will be created and then used and reused and revised and recreated over time. I'm curious if you have a vision for how the new interface will support that differently or better, or if that's more of a future sort of goal.
It's certainly a future goal. We know we need to work out. So right now we have a framework, and on that we will be building for the really practical kind of nuts and bolts of making these books. But to speak kind of generally to it, what we could see this being is a kind of a home hub for a project. So even once it's published, completed, whatever that kind of means, but released in some way, that we could then use this same framework here of a project home to build out other ways of keeping it alive, keeping people engaged, supporting updates, supporting expansion with ancillary materials, tracking adoptions, tracking maybe even forked versions and adaptations, things like that. So there's a world of possibility there as we see it. Right now, we really want to get this piece right. and then kind of have that to build on in that direction. Yeah, cool, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about future direction, just to give you an idea of what's coming down the line in the relatively near future. So we're about to launch as of next week into a closed beta, so we're just getting a few people to come in and kick the tires, make sure that nothing falls apart once we have people other than our team involved, and then we'll be looking for projects who are interested in trying this out as a beta software, and kind of having inviting them in to create their projects and offering support where we can. Probably not the same kind of very hands-on day-to-day support that we have done with some projects to date, but definitely about sharing the knowledge we have in the guides and resources we're developing, and also helping people connect to others in our network and really spreading the word that way. So that's kind of from the how we get this out into people's hands bit is what we're planning, and we're really excited about that. In terms of the development progress, so as I say, this is kind of the framework. What will be the next item for us to tackle is building a book framework, because as we've been working, we've found that all the different activities people tend to do hang off of the chapter outline in a lot of ways. So you always have an author for each. We take the approach of doing a lot of chapter review, although also full text review, and even things to the point of, say, sourcing images, checking permissions. Those can be broken down to a chapter by chapter basis. So we want to be able to support that, which flows into the next piece, which is task management. So that idea of you have an activity, which is quite broad, like let's keep going with the peer review example, because I know that people spend a lot of time with this one. So you have an activity broadly writ, but within that, we want to be able to build a dedicated widget that has that chapter structure and a really clear, like, volunteer for this thing. I want to volunteer to review chapter 2. So that kind of detail, being able to have someone attached to the chapter. We also think that probably in the future, that list of tasks, we could work on templating some of them. So there are kind of administrative tasks associated with something like peer review that we have had some experience with, that other people have had experience with, that we draw on, but that other people might not know right out of the gate. So we can build in templating for that to support them through that process and point them in different directions that they need to go, have them thinking about things they need to consider as they work. So that's one other thing that we kind of see there. The other thing that we'll be looking at is dashboards. So for people who are managing lots of projects, we know that sometimes you need that shorthand view of where all of them are and what they're up to. So that's kind of probably going to be the first one that we look at. And then as well, for a project manager, Apriva and I, we live our lives in spreadsheets, many different kinds of spreadsheets. And we see ways that we can kind of use that sort of approach of being able to have a broad overlook of all the different things that are happening on a book or on an activity. Each of these things, there's information that we can surface that will be useful to the people coordinating and also useful to the users who are involved. So it's feasible that someone might be involved with a bunch of different projects and they know they have due dates for a few of them, and they need to be able to go somewhere and see that information really clearly. So that's something else we have coming up. And then the last big piece, which we're really excited to tackle, is this idea of what we often call marketing, but probably in some ways it's also marketing and community building. So we think of marketing it as something that is built into every single step of the book production process, because marketing in this context is about getting people to adopt, getting people to contribute, getting people to adapt. It's investing them in the project. So that is a big piece as well, that kind of marketing and community building that starts right from day one. We want to be able to build in, well, we will be building in tools to support that as well. So that's kind of, that's the overview. As I say, this is our first public demo. So if anyone has thoughts or questions that they want to share separately, I'll drop my email address into the chat here. And then as well, if you're interested in using this thing, we've set up a form just to kind of get that information. Provis just dropped the link into the chat. And yeah, we're really excited to have people use this and let us know if anything is right, is wrong, should be different, whatever you kind of have to say about it. This is all built with the idea of being able to support people who are trying to do this work of publishing open textbooks that we think is incredibly powerful and exciting. And yeah, so we'd love to have you involved. And actually, I see from Alexis a question about print book solution. So we have been exploring print on demand, and we've supported that for some of our projects. And so I think it's likely to go in as one of those activities that we have an approach for. And if it kind of looks like it's something that needs more dedicated support from our side, then we'll work on it. So it's certainly a solvable problem. We've kind of identified a few things that need to be figured out around it. But yeah, that's kind of been our approach so far. Okay, with the last 3 minutes, are there any other questions? I'm not hearing any. I'll drop my email address in here. So I'm Zoe at rebus.community for anyone who doesn't see the chat. And I think that's about all I have. So Ethan, I might hand back over to you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, please formally make me the host, and I'll hold down the fort till our next presentation gets started.
I will indeed.
Thanks a lot, Zoe.
Here we go. No worries. And really, I have to say, none of this would be possible without the people we've been working with. We've had fantastic experiences with all our different projects that have, as I say, been at different stages, but all kind of working towards the same goal. And we're really grateful to all of them. All that learning has gone directly into the software that we're now excited to take to the world. Okay. Right, well, I might leave everyone to it. I'm not sure what the next session is, but back over to you, Ethan.
Thanks a lot, Zoe. So next up joining us will be Saman Azimi from the Student Government Resource Center.